Welcome to Cradle to Campus. This is your one-stop family shop that offers spiritual, emotional, and mental orientation into the family conundrums that sail through child developmental stages all the way to campus. My name is Amos Otieno, and together with my lovely wife,
Kiki Otieno,
we are going to host you for this show. But today we have a hot topic. The topic is sex. Yes, this is one of the topics that we usually talk about on hushed tones. We don't shout about it on the rooftops, even though it is very key and very fundamental to the developmental stages of every child.
thank you so much for subscribing, for viewing, for your feedback, and being part of this journey. So something happened in our home about a week and a half ago. It was those moments as a mom, you don't know what to say. And we are here to talk about it. First of all, as parents, but also come up with some way forwards on how to go about it. So let me tell you what happened. Our 6 years, a pre-puberty daughter was out playing, just like any other kid with this corona season. And she came in the house and she asked me the meaning of a word, a sexual word, and she had had it outside there. And my body just went into a shock. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to explain to her. And she felt that I was not giving her, the right answer, or she was not satisfied. And she went to her dad. So how was your experience?
So when she asked, the first response was, aham, ha, how, hey. Yeah, it was one of those moments that need wisdom, because you have to discuss it, or I had to tell her what it is, and basically what she had, and how she needs to deal with it, or the knowledge around it. Then quickly I realized that I'm also limited on how to carry out this exercise. So we decided to seek the help of a friend who tends to have more muscles in this area. So that she can prep us as well. It seems that these things come in manageable pieces. So this was our piece that we need to figure out how to manage. So we are going there now.
So we are here, and I am so excited. I am looking forward to a great session. And our guest today is Lucy Achien Kamau. She has many titles. First of all, she's a friend, a very dear friend. She is an educationist. She is a child protection officer, and now she's a child therapist in training. So you guys can hear, we are in for a treat. And I'm looking forward to having a great session as we're learning about sex and sexuality, and how do we, handle this difficult topic in our houses.
Yeah, so as we said in our last video, we are here. Lucy needs to help us with an issue came up like a week and a half ago. My daughter was playing outside together with other kids. COVID somehow set us up to figure out how you can deal with your kids at home. So then she runs in, and she asks the mom a question, and she was not quick to answer. When she realized that, she moved on to me. And she also asked the same question. You might be wondering what question that is. So she came and asked, Dad, what is FU? You know the F word? And I was like, ha. All right. Hey, who said that? Who? Okay, it turned out it was one of the kids. But clearly, I figured out, made up a few words to explain what that is. Yeah. But I fell short of actually teaching her the fullness of sexuality and sex at that and then at that age, because she's just about 6 basically. So how especially as a father, You know, how do you bring up a sexuality topic with your child?
All right, thank you, Amos and Kiki. It's indeed a pleasure to have you guys here and to have this conversation with you. Our children will ask these kinds of questions every time.
Yes.
So your response is priceless. Just looking at you from a parent's point of view, most parents actually respond in this way. And having conversations about sex should not be as strange and foreign and embarrassing. In fact, it should be natural. It should be conversation like any other. You know? So as our children are young, that's the best place to start.
Wow.
When they are little, because as our children are little, they learn to communicate, they learn to have conversations with us. The one most important thing is to be honest and to be open, you know, so that a child feels safe and secure having any conversation, you know, with you. So when a child comes to you with such a question, I had in the playground, we were playing and I had the F word, or I had somebody say something else that maybe has sexual content. The first thing that I would advise is that as parents we need to have shock absorbers so that we don't look shocked. You know, when the children are very good interpreters, you know, I mean, they look at you, they see your facial features, they see your responses, and they can interpret that. And they can interpret whether whatever they're asking is safe to ask or is not safe to ask. So if you give them an indication that this is not a safe thing to ask, what they do is they quickly shut down. And they can actually even pretend and say, oh, no, I wasn't saying that, Daddy. They can actually make up a whole story to look like that is not what they were asking. So we need to have shock absorbers. Even though you are shocked in the inside, you find a way of not expressing it with your face, you know, so that the child feels safe. I think the second thing is to assure the child. You know, like tell the child, thank you so much for asking this question. I am so glad that you chose to come to me, you know, to ask this question. Then the child knows that whatever question I have, my parents will always be open, you know, and they always assure me. You know, so once you assure them, then they don't feel like it's an insecure thing to ask. They don't feel threatened. They don't feel like they have made a mistake, because some of the responses our parents give us, you feel like, I have made such a big mistake. So they learn to shed, you know, or to hide behind masks and not to tell you the entire truth. So I guess that is where you start with conversations, even about sex.
I must confess quickly, I need to have a redo. Because I think I was shocked. It was a good shock, nicely. So I need to have a redo. How do you bring it up? Like now, me, I lost it. I lost that opportunity to absorb the shock in the background and also to reassure her. So how do I now redo it? Because I think we need to have that conversation.
Yeah, we need to have a redo.
Yeah, we need to have a redo and have that conversation, especially me.
Well, actually, I would want to assure you that you haven't lost, you know, because I think the other part to this is actually being present. And the fact that you are present is a first win.
You have to be present.
You have to be
that
present.
That is key, okay?
Yes, because even the fact that she brought this conversation to you, she did not know, and she felt safe enough to bring it to you, it means that you are present in a certain sense. So as parents, we need to be present for our children. This is not something you can do remotely. You know, this is not, you have to be there for your children, for you to have any kind of conversation, leave alone a conversation with sexual content. So the fact that you're present is a good thing. So I think the next step is now to bring it up. Because you don't have to wait until they bring it up another time. So you can say, okay, come sit, I would want to have a conversation with you. The other day you told me about this word. You know, what do you know about it? You know, so that we
have to first know what they know.
That is very, very important, because you see, a child can ask you a question, and then in our mind as parents, we assume the worst.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
so we can go into a lot of detail only to realize this is not what they were asking.
Yes,
I've heard of this joke. I think it's actually something that happened in reality, where a child came to the parent and asked, Mom, what is sex? You know, and then the mom went into detail of explaining, you know, this is what sex is.
Yes.
And then the child said, okay, I have this form from school, so I need to check a box. Is it the M or the F? So you need to know what it is they're asking. They could just be asking sex in the sense of, am I female or am I male?
Yes.
You know, so now you have delved into so much that they were not ready for. So you need to start from the known to unknown. So get to know, so you had this in the playground. What do you think that means? So once they have told you what they know, then you can build on it. So you might find that this is something that they just had in the playground, and yet they have no idea completely of what it means. You know? So you can just explain to them that this word, it means sex, but we are not ready to have the conversation into detail about sex. But when we are ready, I will be very happy to have that conversation with you.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Of course, we have some reading to do there. But I'm just wondering, okay, how do we approach this? Because in our context, in our African culture, you know, sex is a taboo. And you know, for me as a Christian, you know, this is not the one topic that I want to talk to my daughter about, you know, at whatever age. Yet, when I look at the Bible, God made us female and male. You're getting it? God created our sexuality. You know, yet this is a topic that we deal with a lot of like embarrassment around it, you know, we are not so sure how to talk about it. How do we bring up this topic from a very young age, just like the way you're saying, because I'm already feeling like in my situation, I'm already feeling we are pre-pubertal. Like we are going to where, you know, now things are going to be changing and a lot of things going on in her mind, in her body. So how best do we deal with this? But what is the knowledge that we need to know, the correct knowledge that we need to know about sex, you know, and about the way we develop sexually, maybe from conception all the way to, you know, in our teen years, because I'm sure that is now where now we are fully developed sexually. And by the way, viewers, this is a topic that is a beautiful topic because God made us as a sexual beings. We don't have to feel embarrassed, we don't have to feel like, oh my goodness, you know, why are we talking about this? We are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Amen.
And this conversation has to happen without shame because, you know, this is God who created us the way He has created us.
Beautiful.
All right. Well, just like you've mentioned, we need to start early. I used to work as a social worker with children, and we used to have this mantra, starting early, finishing well. You know, so when you start something early, you have more time to work on it, you know, and then you have a lot of leverage because then you keep building on it. So just the same way when a child learns, development is incremental. You know, so even knowledge needs to come to them in an incremental way. So for example, when a child is young, let's think about, for example, the preschool years. You know, even before preschool at 2, a child, once their language is developed, they're already learning about their body parts. You know, that is one of the big things you find in preschools. My body. You know, so they learn about, this is my head, these are my shoulders, these are my knees, these are my toes, you know. But then an interesting thing happens is when we come to the private parts, we don't teach the children. You know, so that is why there's a lot of shame around it, because you find parents call private parts, like I've had many different names, but I think the worst for me is doo-doo. I don't know if you've heard about, because it sounds like it's a bad thing.
I know, I need to do your doo-doo.
You need to hide your doo-doo, you need to, you know, so it looks like it's such a bad thing. So the first thing is that we need to teach children their body parts.
And
you know,
the
just like
correct names.
the correct names, just
Yes.
like you've given the biblical perspective.
Yeah.
There's a scripture I think in Corinthians that says
Oh,
that
yeah.
that talks about the less honorable parts are
Yes.
treated with more honor.
Special
Wow.
honor, yes,
You know,
yes.
Yes.
so the same way you teach them their body parts. Like
Wow.
a girl knows that this body part is called a vagina.
Yes.
There is no shame in that.
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
imagine if your child was to be taken to hospital, maybe they have a problem,
Mhm.
you know, and they're trying to explain that they're having pain in their private part, and they cannot
No.
even say.
They're
Yeah.
saying my
You know, they say
Yeah.
my do.
Nobody
And
knows, do you?
yes, it can be very confusing
Yes.
for the child. So they need to know the private parts, and they need to know the names, and they need to know that there is no shame
in that.
in calling it by its name.
Wow.
But alongside that, they need to know the appropriateness. You know, like
Yes.
what is appropriate to say where.
Where?
Wow.
You know,
That
you
is
don't,
process.
don't run around in the playground and say your pennies and you don't
Yes,
do that.
yes,
You
yes.
know, but when we are having conversations with you, you can say it. You can say that this is what is happening. I'm having, like
Yes.
girls, for example, they
Yes.
have UTIs.
Yes.
You know, they need to be able to say that I'm having an itch in my vagina. You know, so that it's very clear what is happening.
Wow.
You know, because when it's not very clear, then they tend to be shy.
Ah,
Be shy
yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about it. So
yeah.
just in the same way in the preschool years we're talking about, it's the main thing is just
The body.
the body parts.
Wow.
You know? So they
Wow,
know their
that's
body parts.
amazing.
They know that there is no shame in knowing their body parts. But then also for their safety, because safety is a key concern
Yes,
that runs
yes.
across right from even before preschool all the way.
Yes.
They need to know that these body parts are private, and you know, just like we said, the less honorable are treated with more honor. They need to be covered properly.
Yes.
Nobody needs to see them.
Yes.
Nobody needs to touch them.
Yes.
You know, and then they need to learn about what is appropriate touch, what is
Yeah.
not
Inappropriate
appropriate
touch,
touch.
yes.
You know.
Before you proceed, before we proceed, so now I'm teaching my daughter about the appropriate touch
Yeah.
and inappropriate touch.
Yeah.
What is the appropriate touch?
Okay.
And what is
Yeah.
the inappropriate?
First of all, before we even go to what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, when we're teaching children about their bodies, they
Yeah.
need to learn to own their body. You know, there's I think it's a misconception with parents especially, where we force children to do things that they don't feel comfortable with. And it might look like an innocent thing, like your child might come to my house, for
Yeah.
example, and then she comes and says, hi Lucy, or hi Mama, how are you? You know, and then you say, give her a hug, but she's not feeling like giving a hug.
Ah.
So you're basically compelling her to do things with her body that
That's
she is not comfortable with.
Wow.
You know, so that should not happen.
Wow.
You know, the child should be able to make decisions about how they feel. Like if they feel a handshake is the best they can do, that's fine.
Wow.
Think about it, even you as an adult.
Wow.
Yeah.
There are people you will give a hug easily,
Yes.
and the others you will wave from afar.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So in the same way we should teach children to be able to say, this is the yes I can give,
can give, yes.
and this is the no.
Yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
don't feel like giving a hug. That's okay.
Wow.
And we need to affirm them, because you can imagine if you have a child and then you're busy saying, give her a hug, and she doesn't want you can see she's holding back. Then maybe if you're the two of you, the other partner can come in and say, it's okay if you don't want to give her a hug, maybe you can just give a handshake, or maybe you can just say hi.
Yeah.
So the children need to know that I can be polite without necessarily doing things.
Without
that-
giving a hug.
Yes, without giving a hug. Let them do it if they feel safe to do it.
Yeah.
You know, because a hug, as much as it seems like a simple and innocent and safe thing, if somebody can actually hug you and you feel
Yes.
that like this was
Yes.
actually inappropriate.
Yes.
You know, so they need to know and understand that. So back to what is appropriate and what is not appropriate. I think the basics of it is that touch that is on parts of your body that we do not consider private, we consider as appropriate touch. you know. But touch that are on hidden parts of your body that we consider private is completely not appropriate.
Yes.
And then we also need to teach them things about, even though it looks like it's appropriate, the length of it. Like for example, the length of a handshake. A handshake is very simple, quick, it's fast, you know, and then you withdraw. But if somebody lingers in their touch, chances are that that is not appropriate.
Yes.
You know, so someone can even be giving you a pat on the back, but if they linger there, that is definitely not
inappropriate.
Wow, wow, that is so helpful.
Wonderful. You know what? I've been taught. You know, I'm one of those who's like, salimia mtu vizuri. What's up with you? You know, I think I'm the one who needs to repent on those lines.
Yeah.
Because I find myself in some of those things that
you're saying there.
Yeah, and I think I also want to call attention to parents who are absent. I think that also is an area that are due to life challenges. I don't know how you know we can reach out to them and help them also on how to deal with this section of allowing the child to connect with them, so that even if they come after 2 weeks or after 2 days or in the evening, the child will still be safe enough, or they are also safe enough as a parent to be approached by the child. Even if I'm just 4 or 11 in the night, the child will still say, Dad, you know, this happened during the day, or Mom, this happened during the day. So, you know, would you have, you know, ideas on how we can support these parents, or who may be, you know, life? Well,
that is true that in this day and age, I mean, people are very busy. I mean, people have to work to provide for their families. And unlike the olden days, you know, where maybe one of the partners would be at home, moms would be at home, and dads would be out there working. Now the situation is such that both parents are working. And sometimes both parents are actually working away from home. So you find that these children, they spend most of their time maybe with a nanny or with relatives. Or in worst case scenario, they're away in boarding schools at very early ages. So it's very important for parents to create a pattern, so to speak, a safe space, you know, so that the children know, even if my mom or my dad is away Monday to Friday, then we have a special day that is just for us as a family, you know, and then during that special day we can talk about whatever is in our minds. We can talk about everything that happened, you know. It's such a good habit to ask your children what happened while you were away. If that away might be 2 hours. No, you could have gone away for 2 hours, left them with a nanny, or they could have gone to school for 8 hours, and then they come back home. You need to know what happened.
Something happened.
You know, what did you enjoy most? Tell me about it. You know, what did you like? You know, what went wrong? What went right? You know, you need to have those conversations with the children. Learn to ask open-ended questions. You know, so that you're not asking a question where they just give you one answer. How was your day? Good. As opposed to saying, how was your day? Because tell me about your day. What did you enjoy? What did you enjoy? You know, what did you learn? You know, in math today, what did you learn in language? What did the teacher do that is new today? You know, how about the other children? Just get into their lives, you know, so that you get to know what is happening. If you're not there on a day-to-day basis, let's say you were there once a week, or you're there twice, once in 2 weeks, for example, there's something that is called therapy. It's therapeutic play that is done. It's not done by a therapist and a child. It's actually done by the parent and the child.
Come on now.
So this is something that we encourage parents to do. You know, and you don't have to do it every week. You can set it so that you do it once in 2 weeks, once a month. So how it's done is that, first of all, you must really invest your time. You know, you must invest your time. You must invest in a simple space. It could be your living room. It could be your bedroom. You must invest in some simple toys, especially when your child is young. When they're young, you can invest in toys. So this time is a time where you play with your child, but the child is the one who needs the play.
Who leads?
Yes, the
Yes.
child leads the
They
play.
show
So you
you.
have toys,
Yeah.
and then you just let them play, but you're there. You're present.
Yes.
You're
So
present.
you're playing
there.
with them.
Yeah.
You're
You're
not
playing
just
with them.
a spectator.
Yes,
watching.
you're not a spectator,
Yes.
and yet you're not the one leading. You're not the one saying, let's do this, let's do this, let's make
No,
this.
no, no.
You're letting them lead, you know. So what do you want to play with today? You brought out the toys, then they pick it up, then they play. As you play with your child, you will find, because play is the language of the child, that the child will speak things that you have not known. And even when the child is not of speaking age, say the child is younger than 2, by just looking at how they play, there's so much that you'll be able to learn from that child.
Wow.
Yes, you know, children act out. Sometimes they cannot say. They cannot say, Auntie tappers
Yes.
me when you're gone, you know,
Yes.
or touches me in a certain way when you're gone. Eh?
Yes.
But they can act it out. You can see how they're playing with the doll.
Yes.
You can imagine a child who's playing with a doll and is always taking boko and spanking this doll.
Oh.
You bad child, you know, and that is what they're doing with the doll. That tells you
Yes.
something.
Yeah.
You know, of course, best case scenario is where you're present every day
Yes,
with
yes.
the children, where you're doing, especially those private activities like showering, for example.
Yes.
You know, so that you're there doing it with them. That is a best case scenario.
Wow.
But when you're not there, you need to create spaces and time where the child feels safe. Because in that, and this just needs to be half an hour. It can be half an hour every 2 weeks.
Wow.
It could be half an hour every 4 weeks.
Yes.
So every parent can actually be able to do this, unless you're completely not there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. There is so much learning going on.
Man.
Yeah. So
Oh, wow.
I'm so grateful that we can have this conversation. Huh? Yeah, and I'm thinking the schools have been closed for the last 6+ months now, going to
Yeah.
7 months. Yeah, and I know you're a child protection officer. And you know, the one thing that comes into my mind, I don't know if this is wrong or right, is, you know, whenever I'm not home or whenever, you know, my kid is out playing,
Yeah.
I think about their sexual protection
Yeah.
in terms of, you know, could someone have been touching them inappropriately?
Yeah.
You know, there's the issue of raping, there's the issue of molestation, you know.
Even with fellow kids.
Yeah, there's the
Yeah.
issue of
Sodomization.
Yes, it's become very common. So I don't know, how do we go about this, you know, before we move to the teenagers? Because I know now we'll talk about teenagers later.
Yeah.
But how do we, as parents, how do we handle this issue? How do we make sure that we are checking on them, we are getting the right cues? Because the cues are usually there,
Yeah.
you know, to know something is not happening in the right way here.
Yeah.
And how do we create a safe environment for them and boundaries? Of course, now we've talked about boundaries for themselves, but boundaries in their play area, boundaries with their environment, and boundaries with people who they're interacting with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must say that as parents, we need to be vigilant
Yes.
all the time. We need to ensure, just like you said, that the home environment is safe for our children, the playground where they play is safe for them. If they happen to go to anybody else's place, like neighbors,
Yes.
relatives, we need to ensure that that is safe.
Safe.
So we need to be very attentive. And I think it starts from just what we said previously, that our communication needs to be open.
Yes.
The doors and windows of communication in our day-to-day lives with our children need to be open. So our children need to know that they can ask any question. You know, never write off the question of a child. You know, every question that they're asking is valid. You know, even though it sounds like a foolish question, we should always answer, because in answering we are affirming the child. You know, we are telling them, yes, feel free, you can ask this question.
Yeah.
You are safe with me. You know, so that is the first place, so that our children can know. I mean, if anything happens to them that is not within what they have learned from home, you are the first person that they should tell. You know, like now the situation that happened in the playground.
Yeah.
So you affirm her, so that she knows that if anything like this happens,
Yes.
if somebody touches me inappropriately, the first person that I should tell is my mom. But while they're out there in the playground, you know, we need to constantly check whether the children, whether they are getting, whether they're understanding even the information that we're trying to give them. You know, so I ask questions to my daughters. I ask questions like, so suppose you're in the playground and somebody touches you in your private part. what will you do? You know, so that you hear their response, because they need to be protected even when you're not there. You may not always get there.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you're in the house and this is happening out in the field, or sometimes you're not even there. So you hear what they're telling you they'll do. So when a child might tell you something like, I'll wait and then I'll tell you. I'll tell you when you come. Then you need to correct that. That when you're in the playfield, you need to be assertive. So you need to say no. And you need to say it in a loud voice, so that the person who's trying to touch you in a certain way knows that that is actually a no. And it's not a middle, it's not maybe we can do this, it's an oh. And it's a no. So they need to learn. They need to learn that. Beyond that, we need, for example, of course, in our homes we have nannies, or we have helps that come to take care of our children.
Relatives.
Or relatives.
Yes.
One thing that is very important when you have, for example, a new help come, you need to have this conversation with your child and the help.
Wow.
So the help knows that the child knows what is expected.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
So, for example, if you're talking about, so we have auntie has come to live with us, and this is what auntie can do. Auntie can shower you, auntie can change you, but auntie should not touch in your private part, you know, in your vagina or in your penis, and auntie should not, maybe if it's an older child, you can tell them, auntie cannot come into the room when you're changing, for example, so that the nanny learns to respect the privacy of the child, and the child can see that we have had this conversation when the nanny is here. You know, that gives the child power. As opposed to where you just talk to the nanny aside, the child is not privy to this conversation. Even if it's a relative. You know, sometimes, and in fact, most of our children are violated by people who are very close to them.
Wow.
Relatives, aunties and uncles, pastors. Sorry to say. So you need to have, if this is somebody coming into your space, and they're coming to stay with you for a long time, you need to have that conversation. So you're going to have that conversation, say it's my brother who's come to me with us. I'll have that conversation with my brother first of all, and so that I assure them why I'm having this conversation with them, you know, for the protection of my children. And then I'm going to have this conversation with my children together with my brother. This is how the relationship is going to work. This is what you can do, and this is what you cannot do. Again, in the home setting, growing up, you know, I think there are things that happen. Maybe our parents were not privy to all this knowledge. Like whenever you would have visitors, maybe this happened in your place as well. The visitor would spend maybe in the bedroom. You know, maybe you would share the bed. I mean, these are things that should not happen. You know, so if for example, my brother comes and he needs to spend in a place, he needs to know that if I don't have a spare room, then he's going to be sleeping in the sitting room. Because I have girls. You know, if it's my sister who has come, she can sleep in the same room, but we will give her one bed and the girls will share a bed. You know, so that they know, they understand that the privacy is respected. You know, so that you don't have situations where children are actually being thrown out of their room. That happened to us when we were growing up. You know. So you're thrown out of your room. So it's like you don't have a sense of privacy. You know, and sometimes. Can you imagine when you've allowed maybe a gentleman, maybe this is your brother or your cousin, to sleep in the same room with your daughters? Essentially, your daughters in their mind, they're thinking, if my parents have allowed this person in my bedroom, whatever they're doing has been allowed. You know. So once you have kept that, they also recognize that, okay, there is some boundaries. Even myself, I am not supposed to be in the same bedroom with this person. So if they are coming into the bedroom maybe to change, I need to go out. So those are small things that we can teach our children, and some things that we do practically. Just to affirm the privacy.
This is a very rich conversation. We cannot even end. We need to keep talking and talking. You know, but even as we end this session, I want to ask you, the truth is, these things happen. It's not that you're talking like,
from the air.
You know, from the... What are some of the signs that I need to look out for to know that something is happening in my with my daughter or my son, you know, that is amiss?
Well, I'll give you maybe one or two. One is when a child, when they're speaking, for example, like what happened in the playground,
Yes.
sometimes they don't even tell you, but you suddenly notice that their language has
Changed.
sexual content, content that they have not experienced when they're with you. That should be an indicator to any parent that the child might be exposed. They could be exposed because somebody is abusing them, maybe somebody is having these conversations with them, or maybe it's the media, pornography.
Yes.
So you need to listen to how your children talk, the things that they are saying. Don't just assume, you know. Always get to know where they're getting this. Another thing is change in their behavior. You know, like a child who is bubbly and playful suddenly withdrawing, you know, that should be a red flag. You need to find out why are they withdrawn? Why are they suddenly not their bubbly self? It could be that they are being abused. You know, so a child who did not previously have separation anxiety, having anxiety, should be a red flag. You know, like you want to leave, you want to go for work, and they're crying. They can't stop crying. You know, that tells you that they don't feel safe with whoever you're living them with. So these are cues that we get that we should not ignore. You know, we should seek to find out what is going on. You know, that you probably might not have known about. Another thing is a child might have, maybe, especially girls, they can have it might look like a UTI. They might have an infection in their private parts. That, you know, that should be an indicator. It could just be pain, it could be an itch, it could be anything that is not normal with their private parts. Should tell you that something is happening. And maybe you need to pay attention to it, maybe have the child checked, maybe have conversations about it, just to know if maybe the child might be sexually abused. Again, we need to pay attention to people around us. You know, we live in a community, and sometimes, I mean, we have become very individualized. You know, we need to pay attention to people in the community. Somebody might say, I heard your child saying this, or I saw your child doing this. Sometimes we ignore, you know, you feel like, this is my child, don't tell me. Or I had your help doing this. We need to pay attention to people within our community who are talking to us, who are sending us messages, whether it is intentionally or subtle messages. We need to pay attention to that. Because they might have noticed something that might be a cue for you, and yet you're ignoring it. I remember one time working with children, this boy who was 4-year-old, who would come into school, and he would always mention that auntie disturbs me. Every time auntie disturbs me in the bedroom, in the washroom. And, you know, quickly in my mind I felt something is completely awful. And so I had a conversation with the parent. I just mentioned, I think that something is happening, and you need to pay attention to it, you need to find out. And the first thing that happened, which happens with a lot of parents, is become very defensive. You know. But ultimately, the parent actually realized that this child was being sexually molested by the husband. You know, so we need to pay attention. We need to pay attention to all the messages that we're getting.
Wow.
Perfect.
Wow, thank you so much for that. And maybe what I can say as we conclude this section is sexual development is very important. And just like she said, it builds up. You know, it's very progressive. And you know, some of these things that could be happening to our kids, whether positive or negative, they affect the way their sexuality is developed eventually. You know, so if a child is molested, or if they are body shaped, or something is done to them when they are young, it will affect them when they are older, maybe when they are, you know, when they are married, when in that context. So parents, we need to be very careful how we say it, you know, the way we are helping them develop sexually, because it's building up to the person that they'll become eventually, you know, sexually. Just like the way we said, remember, God has made us sexual beings. There's no shame, and that is who we are. So we need to be very comfortable to have this conversation. Join us soon for the teens conversation.
And for this section, I want to take out two. One is a keyword, but the other one is as simple as presence. Creating presence with your child is key. It's very important. But secondly, I had a very good word here that I want to take away. You call it
Theraplay.
Theraplay. That is the key word for this section. Theraplay. It will tell you what you do not hear Yes, the actions as you're playing are also very key.
Yeah.
Please, hold on for the next episode for the teen section.
Thank you so much.